Ani has turned his camera on. We have A, B, C, D, E, F, I.
Sorry, Ajit, it would not be possible for me.
It's all right. It's all right. If it's possible and nothing is against your comfort, then you are very welcome to turn on your cameras because I'll make personally all the attempts to not make it any boring or any like systematically boring. We have tried our bit. I used turned on his camera but then turned it off. That's all right. Am I clearly audible first of all? Yeah, then perfect. Because I'm visiting my extended family in a remote part of Uttar Pradesh, so I have just connected my laptop with my phone, so I have no Wi-Fi. I might not be clearly audible at times. Just inform me and tell me when something like that happens. So we are 19 people in all. Hi Sharon, thanks for joining. Thanks everyone who has come here. I think we can begin now, Tanu. What do you say?
Yeah, we can start now. Yes.
Now, Himanshu has also joined us. Himanshu, shall we begin then?
Yeah, you can
Yes.
start now.
Okay, so hi guys, my name is Ajit Singh. I'm a third year student of philosophy honors at Zakir Hussain College, University of Delhi. And I am, like most of you perhaps, a very new member who has joined this group, Philosophy and Everything. And I have been entrusted with the task of the discussant for today's discussion. And it is one of the discussions in a series of discussions that we'll definitely have in the future. And I'd like all you guys to uh, keep a track of it and join this upcoming sessions. And this is a group, or this is a forum, philosophical discussion forum called Let's Talk Tattva. Under that, we have this group, Philosophy and Everything. And you're also, okay, some people are again right now joining. I don't understand why they're leaving and joining. Okay.
No, no, I'm letting them in now. So you
Acha,
just
acha. Yeah, perfect. Thanks, then. So this is the first event that we're having, and the topic we'll just come to the topic later on. And our aim and ambition is to provoke interest, philosophical interest in everyone. And I understand that not all of the people joining in this group, a member of this group and joining today, are from a background which is philosophical or anything like that. But and they're here out of pure inquiry and interest into the unknown, and that is very good. And I welcome you all. We are all novices. I just want you all to believe that we are all as uninformed about anything as anyone is, because philosophy, it stretches to the extents one cannot measure. So okay, we have yeah. And for the first discussion, we have chosen the topic literature and philosophy. And actually, uh, the ambition of this group, as I have been able to infer from what we have discussed amongst ourselves, Tanu and I and Imanshu, is to make philosophy very interesting, very engaging for as many people as we can, because outside the academia, sadly, there happens to be not much scope, or there happens to be not much, what do you call it, a space for having such discussions. So we wanted to begin with something like this, and that's very good that we are finally having this. And the topic, I was asked to choose a topic for the discussion, and I chose this. And I would like to briefly go over the reasons for which I have chosen this topic. Uh, some of you might agree that it's a very frequent phenomenon that people tend to misidentify literature with philosophy. Something it is almost very usual of them to use philosophical as an adjective to anything that is actually literally of a literary provenance. So, and that is something that I came across as well. I had one senior of mine. I was only taking admission while she was almost graduating. She told me that she hadn't found her course very interesting because she had been a victim of misidentification. She had taken philosophy to be merely be an extension of literature, and therefore her 3 years hadn't been as eventful as she had expected it to be. She had wanted to be a writer, but she hadn't found much charm in what her teachers had ended up teaching her. And this is very common, as I said. And incidentally, we also had philosophy of science. I was a student of fifth semester, and now I'm 14 days away from entering my sixth semester and the final semester, which is doomed to be online only. So we had philosophy of science, in which we read. Okay, Ani has written something. I'll get back to you, Ani, in a while. I'll just end what I was saying. I'll not discontinue the line of thought. So we had philosophy of science, wherein we were uh, taught about the demarcation problem. It is a problem in science which tries to find out the theory or the principles with which you can distinguish science from anything otherwise, from pseudoscience. So there's a task of drawing a line between what constitutes as science and what is not, what does not. So partly from there and partly from my personal experiences, I thought that it could be wise or it could be good to start with this endeavor, that we could discuss amongst ourselves how philosophy and literature are different academically, different in what they do, in their intent, in their content. But at the same time, there happens to be occasions when they come together and they inform humankind, and that is what the topic is: philosophy and literature, demarcation and confluence. So there's something to be said about the demarcation, how they are different, and there's something to be said about literature, how there's something to be said about confluence, how they come together and inform the mankind. So the and I just hope that you went over the interview that was there in pre-discussion resources, although it is not an imperative that you have to have watched that or necessarily, because this is a discussion. I'll not pop up any PowerPoint presentation on my screen. I'll not have anything that makes this discussion systematically boring. I'd instead ask you to join in with your comments, with your messages, with whatever you think of the topic, whatever you've been able to infer. And this is totally student-friendly discussion. No professors, I guess. So we are all free to talk about anything that is obviously pertinent to the topic. And there are only a handful of things to be made sure. That is, you don't have to lose the decency of your tongue, have to maintain some decorum, and let everyone speak. And you'll soon find out that I like to talk a lot, so you can always intervene and ask me to stop and take your turn in speaking whatever you want to. So I'll just quickly lay down what it is that we are going to do here. Uh, Firstly, there we'll talk about, in a minute or two, we'll go over the demarcation and how philosophers have treated literature. And we'll always, and before we begin, what kind of literature here are we talking about? See, there's so much of text available online about COVID-19 and its variants, and that's also literature. But that's a scientific literature. The literature that we are going to be dealing with is the literature that we see in poetry, in drama, in stories, literature as a form of art, that is to say. and how it is related to philosophy, and how it is influenced by philosophy, and how it is distinguished and distinct, and cannot be as easily misidentified as philosophy. So I hope I'm all clear by now until here. Any problems, any suggestions, anything to say, anything to add? No issues. And please camera on kar lo, because I have so much sympathy for my professors today that I now realize what it is to speak to a screen which has absolutely no face on the screen. Okay, I'll take it as a no, that you have no issues whatsoever. Oh, thank you, Ayush. Thanks, A, B, C, D, E, F. Mobilized. So, anything to add so far? Anything, any doubt and query whatsoever? Kashiko? Ani, I'll just go back to your comment in a while. Just give me a minute. So, I just laid out what kind of literature are we going to deal with, what it is that we are going to do, and we'll also be making sure that we don't get into the linguistics of things. That is to say, we'll not be analytic philosophers for today. We'll not go into something that is so what should I say, conventionally systematic as what analytic philosophers were doing in the early 20th century. So firstly, we know we have account of Plato in Plato's Republic, and before, you guys must have heard about Plato, this guy from ancient Greek. Despite having been a successful writer of poetry and drama, and having had a widely recognized talent as an artist, after meeting Socrates, Plato renounced art and adopted the deductive principle articulated by Socrates, that all things in this world are merely imperfect copies of the eternal forms, or the universals, as he said. This is the Plato's theory of forms. Universals are the perfect aspect of all truth, found in the weak copies of this world of experience. Thus, truth or justice, both subjects on which Plato wrote extensively in a magnificently beautiful prose, actually, by the way, are comprehensible only by understanding the world of the forms. Art, Plato said, which imitates the objects and events of the ordinary life, is therefore a mere copy of a form, or something that is very far removed from the truth. Works of art that employ the aspect of this existence for their form are therefore even more of an illusion than ordinary experience. So this is what Plato held for any art form, actually. According to Plato, then works of art are at best entertainment, and at worst dangerous delusions. In Plato's magnum opus, which is the Republic, the artist is even considered dangerous and not to have any appropriate station. So this is the classical reproach that is held against literature and the literary artists, that their work is merely a copy of a copy. So, and this is something that dominated the Western thought for a long time, for a really long time, actually, for 2000 years, almost 2000 years, when it was believed that literature is purely, and if you considered watching that interview that I had shared in the pre-discussion resources, wherein Iris Modrock says that literature is distinguished from philosophy as mystification, whereas philosophy is clarification. Literature runs on emotive appeal, metaphors, whereas philosophy tries to do away with them and tries to distance itself from them as much as possible in its pursuit of truth. And this has dominated the Western world, Western philosophical thought for a long time, before we see, or we start seeing a sort of confluence, or must I say, a negotiation between a philosopher and a literary artist. There comes a point where you cannot just ignore the fact that some literary works have been clearly and most conspicuously influenced by philosophical thought of their time. And this is partly what we're also going to discuss on. going to invite your opinions, your thoughts on is literature ever free of the philosophical advancements of its time? So, and as I said, I'm at a place where internet is not the best thing about this space. So if I start to stutter, my screen disappears, or if my voice breaks, just tell me. All right, you can write me a message. I have done on my WhatsApp as well. So this the Platonic refutation of literature dominated the Western world for a long time. Before it was, you could see Leo Tolstoy's War and Peace being a direct allusion to Hegel's phenomenology of the spirit. He even agreed that in a way he was in Tolstoy's War and Peace, he was actually writing the history of the history realizing itself. So there are other examples to take, which are John Locke's friend, contemporary Lawrence mm, Stern, whose novels were very influenced by Lockean theory of time. And there was a philosopher, Henry Bergson. He was a philosopher, predominantly a philosopher of time. His notion of time or the notion of duration have influenced the work of T.S. Eliot, Virginia Woolf, and others as well. So these are the places where you tend to see that literature is very influenced by the philosophy which is contemporary to its creation. And then, is philosophy completely independent of literature? Uh, for the most part, yes. But then, very recently, we have examples of two philosophical thoughts which, at the face of it, prima facie, have only purely emanated out of literature, and it is existentialism and absurdism. The continental thought runs on literary usage, or what should I say, literary art form. Uh, Existentialism has emanated from the works of Soren Kierkegaard, and existentialist writer, is no philosopher but Fyodor Dostoyevsky, whose novels have inspired the existentialist thought, or have, what should I say, underpinned the development of existentialist thoughts. And then Jean-Paul Sartre or Martin Heidegger. Sartre has been a very, very good literary artist. He was so much that he was even awarded the Nobel Prize for it. So, and Albert Camus, the father of absurdism, wrote primarily novels and plays. Sartre's No Exit is a brilliant explanation, or No Exit and his Nausea, if you have not read, I'd highly recommend, is a brilliant exposition of how human predicament is dealt in the purview of existentialist thought. And and there are more actually. Richard Rorty, a philosopher uh, Richard Rorty, a philosopher uh, uh, of a very recent time, who died in 2007, I guess, proposed the idea of reinvention of philosophy as a literary form. He even said that philosophy had, and it is from his book that I quoted earlier, the impact of Platonic ideals on Western philosophical thought for such a long time, that philosophy had become very rigid, and he had been in agreement with Nietzsche, who had refuted perspectivism, and he had asked for a reinvention of philosophy as in form of as a literary form. So you see, there's a debate. Fortunately, it's an ongoing debate, and that's why we can have it in our local circle, and we can spend our time and our intellect in going over it. And that's why we're here, and we'll hopefully do well today. So the prime questions of importance, or we should say the questions that we're going to tackle with are: is philosophy an inalienable part of any art form? That is to say, can an art form exist without the artist asking deep philosophical questions? Can a literary artist be completely uninfluenced by the philosophical thought of his age? And one more is from the perspective, from the point of view of literature, is literature then a better mode of philosophizing? If yes, why? This is precisely how and where we're going to be localized in our discussion. And uh, Hello. Okay, and Ani has made a comment. He said, "What they call philosophy, I call literature. What they call literature, I call journalism. What they call journalism, I call gossip, and what they call gossip, I call generously voyeurism." This is Nassim Nicholas Taleb. That's very cogent, I guess. I'll have to meditate on it for a while in order to understand it. Thanks, Ani, for at least saying something. Hi, Himanshu. I can see you now for the first time. Welcome. And I see we are, how many people are we here? Why don't we ask the question whether any philosophy be free? Yeah, yeah, that's precisely what I said. Can philosophy be uninfluenced by whether any philosophy be free of literature? Can philosophy be without any literature? Can you propagate or promulgate philosophy without any literature? And how is philosophy? If you have any examples to say aside, that'll be wonderful. If you have anything to
No,
add,
so
that'll be equally
basically,
wonderful.
from what I understood from what you were saying is that we were asking a question. I mean, is any literature free? Is the literature free of the philosophy of its time? I was just pondering upon the
Yeah.
exact opposite question. I mean, is the philosophy free of the literature of its time? Because I mean, I find literature personally very important. Say, for example, take the case of I mean, take the Indian case. They have like
Yeah.
literally, they have written so many literary works like Ramayana, Mahabharata, and so many things, right? And these literary works have influenced a lot of philosophy that is being coming down to us in the form of Indian philosophy. So I mean, I was just pondering on the opposite question. I mean, can any philosophy be free of the literature of that of the time that was going on, or the art forms that are going on at that time, or is it that philosophers are just not concerned with the literature or the art forms of their time, or like Plato, they do not consider that they are important.
Yes, precisely. Yes, that's also a question that is open for discussion today, and I would like more and more people to talk and say. And I guess it is my time now. Himanshu has raised
So
his hand.
to add to that, if I may,
Yeah, sure,
yeah,
sure.
to add to what Akash said, actually, I was recently just skimming. I mean, I'm an amateur in philosophy or whatever, but I was skimming through Adi Shankaracharya's Bhashya on the Bhagavad Gita, and it begin in the first chapter itself. He begins by saying that the Bhagavad Gita is Vedanta codified in myth, and that in the literary form, it's more potent than it'll ever be uh, with his own formulation of his philosophy. So I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I guess Himanshu will be able to give better insights into what you said, because I'll be honest with you guys. It takes me some time to understand or produce the references made to Indian philosophy. I'm very sorry. So Himanshu, if you could just add to what ABCDEF said, भाई अपना नाम बता दो.
Okay, I'm sorry, I forgot to change my name on my Google account. My name is Mutasim.
Hi Mutasim, welcome.
Mumtaz. Welcome to the first. So,
There are more
first of
people.
all, thank you for joining.
Yeah, Himanshu, please.
Yes. No, say it.
No, बताओ बताओ आप बोलो.
Okay. So, yes, you are right, Joseph, because and I think because and I also went through that interview which Ajit has shared. So they means they had a different of opinion, though both the thinkers. So I think the philosophers have certain questions to answer, or to or we can say they want to uh, either solve something or influence something. I think because in case of Indian philosophy, for example, if we see the case of Vedanta, as you were saying of Advaita Vedanta, so Shankaracharya, when he was doing all this, so there was a background of uh, Buddhist philosophy, Mahayana Buddhism. So in that case, he wanted to create something or answer certain questions in opposition to prior philosophy. And certainly, philosophy and literature. And if you see, he has created marvelous work of Saundarya Lahari and other which is certainly attributed to him, and others are also which are disputed. So he himself has created many literary works which are also celebrated in Tantra, etc. And many philosophers have done this. And if you see, Bhartrihari is another name.
Yeah.
He has worked in philosophy
Ani,
of
you would like to
language.
say something? He has been raising his hand for a long time. Ani, your time now.
Okay, hi, good evening. Yeah, so I just wanted to say that for me, philosophy comes first, then comes literature. So, uh, you see, if there's a wave in the ocean, so you see different kind of waves. So philosophy is like the ocean. It does not end. It has no start. It has no end. So
Yeah.
you create different kind of waves. So it can be you can be a painter, you can be a poet, you can be a guitarist. So all this is philosophy itself. So what Camus did, or the recent ones, the existentialists, these guys were philosophers first. Then they got a pen so that it started flowing with their books. So for me, that is one thing. And
But
about yeah.
here I would like to ask, why was it that they did not, they weren't as interested in writing philosophical treatises. Instead, they went with literature. And a human predicaments contemplation is done more rigorously in what their literature has been. Then, like we obviously know, have Sartre as an example, is an exemption, who wrote Being and Nothingness, which is a philosophical treatise about existentialism, and it will take you 6 months at least to go through it. But you can read Nausea on any fine day and be influenced by
Mostly,
his
yeah.
existentialist ideas. So why such a change in your medium? Why such a change? And is this change important? Is it inevitable? I'd like to add.
For me, I would say that writing treatises, or very elaborate, codifying or very analytical, like Bertrand Russell, for example, it makes you a professor. It makes you dull. It makes you boring. So if you are an artist, you have the ability to change your mind at any time. You can say this is art. You have the poetic license.
So
And
you're
other
saying
thing,
that philosophers are artists as well, in some sense.
yes, all of them are. And I would
So you
also
will be
say that
refuting or going against Plato and Platonic ideals that philosophers are far removed from anything that is art, and philosophy is not an art. So
yeah,
would you like
I'm
to
okay.
defend that opinion?
I would refute Plato. I would say that all of the philosophers are artists at heart, and they find different means to express their art. And I would also say that expression. The thing about wisdom or knowledge could be that it should not fall in the wrong hands. So that is why they use metaphors, they use allegories, they use symbolism, motifs, and different. I would even say archetypes. So so it does not fall in the wrong hands, and so it is a very elite kind of a profession, sounding very elitist, but I'm sorry, I like so Nietzsche was really, he slammed Plato
Yeah.
in Beyond Good and Evil. So I agree totally with Nietzsche. Plato was boring, simply put.
And Ayush
Any
has something to add as well. Ayush, please.
Yes, hello, am I audible?
Yes,
Yes.
perfectly.
Yes, so I think the this discussion can go on and on because it depends on how we define philosophy and how we define literature. Because anything that is written can be defined as literature, but anything that is thought of can be defined as philosophy. So, going by any of the two definitions, we can call any work of literature a work of philosophy, and any work of philosophy a work of literature. So, it really depends on a person's personal temperament of how they're defining things. It does not have an objective existence that something is a work of philosophy or something is a work of literature. And I think
दिल ना
I don't know.
उम्मीद तो नहीं, नाकाम ही है, लंबी है गम की शाम मगर शाम ही है. How is this philosophy?
Can you repeat that?
He's
दिल ना
saying like
उम्मीद
with
तो
regards
नहीं,
literature was
दिल
philosophy.
दिल ना उम्मीद तो नहीं, नाकाम ही तो है, लंबी है गम की शाम मगर शाम ही तो है.
I suppose philosophy of life किसी ना किसी तरीके से तो related है ही ideation about life से.
Yes, that
और
is
अगर हम लोग
precisely the purpose of us being here. We are going to demarcate. We're going to draw lines, or at least attempt to draw lines. Obviously, we're not as perfect, or as what should I say, learned, that we can claim that we'll be able to do it today. But that's essentially what we are here for, to draw lines, or to at least get a better understanding of where a prospective line could be drawn.
Yes, but I just thought that maybe we should first accept that there is no clear line, and then we should draw a personal line that we are going to draw. Right.
Okay.
So
Okay.
yeah.
And that is why I also asked people to come up with some pieces of poetry, some art form, so that we could, that they believe is very philosophical in a sense, and why they believe, if it is not philosophical in a sense in itself, why does it inspire, and how does it inspire a philosophical perspective? So I hope people have something in their plate, something on their plates to show us, to enlighten us with. And I would highly suggest or request people to speak, please. Akash, Mimansa,
Yeah,
and Tanvir can also
I have
speak.
something to add, I think, and I'm sorry if there is
Please, please,
some
please.
certain distortion in the sound. But what I was thinking is that it also depends on the kind of work I'm doing. So, for example, someone like Kant, who's trying to create an understanding of what reason is. Now, when you're trying to understand reason, you do not use all these art forms. I mean, because art mostly relates to the intuition. But when you're talking about something like Mahabharat, whose entire work idea was to create a darshan which people could follow. I mean, for that, I think a more potent way would be to go with literature, because I mean, people would not understand the treatises of Kant, right?
Yeah. So you're saying that literature sort of translates the academic profundity that they people write, and it helps the idea reach to the masses. Is it what you would like to say?
Yeah, it helps us to reach to the masses. Plus, what I'm trying to say is that the purpose with which I'm writing the work matters a lot. I mean, whether I want to do literature or philosophy with my work, because if my purpose is to, as I said, to critique reason, I would not use art forms for that. But if my purpose is to create a darshan for people, it is better for me to use art forms.
Okay.
The purpose with which the text is written is important in deciding whether literature is chosen or philosophy is chosen, or
That's
treatises are
actually
chosen.
what the question also was. It encapsulates. Can your purpose, as you said, be secluded from anything that you deem is not your purpose? So philosophy, can you seclude it? Can you exclude it from literature? And that is very perfectly. Can you do it?
If you're dealing with very formal metaphysics or very formal theories of logic, then then we can be clear that you cannot accommodate
Yeah.
that in a fictional form of imaginative literature and still be successful in your endeavor. But there are other forms of philosophy where the poetic gist is just you can't disconnect it. Kierkegaard, for example,
Mm.
his work, his imagination is his philosophy in some sense. The kind of the metaphorical gist that he adds to his stories is what gives existentialism the potency. Also, just we were talking about Plato. I I've read a little bit of Plato. I've read two of his dialogues, and I don't know if I would categorize that in the same category of literature that you would put Dostoyevsky or Kierkegaard in, because the literary component of his work is very less. His literature is mainly just arguments. The
Mm.
only thing that I find literary about him is there is a very simple storyline, and then there are characters who just give the arguments. So what I don't understand is, if I were to remove the characters and just lay down the arguments, even in the same language that he has, I don't see how it would make a difference in case of Plato. I don't think it's entirely justified to call his work a work of literature per se, because it does not have the components that you would usually identify with literature in general.
Okay, that's
So that was
that's a
just a
fair point.
tangent. I'm sorry.
But do you really believe that Plato was successful in doing away with metaphors? Because this mirroring, this what he used, the theory of form or correspondence with the forms or the senses. There again, the terms which that are loosely subsumable under the category of metaphor. So, would you like to say that or defend Plato as having done away with metaphor completely, while at the same time reproaching metaphor as being emotive and being far removed from truth, as being misleading? Ayush, you next. We're waiting for you as well.
Um, I forgot his name. I'm sorry. A B C D F. What was his name? What was his name?
Mutasim.
Mataf. I'm sorry. What?
Mutasim.
Mutasim,
Mutasim.
Mutasim.
Right.
Yes. So Mutasim said that if there is going to be serious metaphysical discussion, then that needs to be done in purely academic form. But I think take the works of Hegel or Kant, they're purely academic, but their ideas are almost impenetrable. Like it's very tough to understand what they're saying. But at the same time, I think works of mythology or works of religion, they deal with metaphysical issues, but they present these ideas in terms of narratives. And in a way, it is more efficient to put it that way for people to understand. For example, in Indian philosophy works, ideas like karma or maya, all of these are serious
To say that
metaphysical.
Upanishads, the idea means the content of Upanishad, it's
Yes,
neither
definitely.
philosophical
Upanishads
purely,
also.
neither literary. You can't means categorize it in that sense. And
Yes, so I think that
the
the works
power
of
of
literature
metaphor means
also.
yes.
Yes, I think you were saying the power of metaphors. Well, I think the power of metaphors is precisely to elucidate metaphysical issues um, in a way that is easy to understand. And I think there is some sort of background to literature where we can all understand what is being said. And in purely academic terms, it becomes very difficult because different philosophers create different terms and then they are discussing in that particular language. And it becomes difficult for this other sect of people to understand what they're exactly saying. So, for example, in philosophy of science, people might be using terminologies that even scientists cannot understand because, well, they have created these terms. But in literature, through metaphors, analogies, I think it is easier for anyone to understand, really. And perhaps that is why philosophical literature is more popular than philosophy itself, right? So, yeah.
I
Uh,
would say that that would depend largely on what you think is what you want to get out of it. If you want to get pure aesthetic fulfillment out of it, no doubt, literature that codifies philosophy in itself would be great. But if you really want to answer the questions of metaphysics, like Aristotle does, or like Kant or Hegel does, then I think the literary form fails you, because it's like you're approaching closer and you're approaching closer and closer to objectivity, and the closer you go to objectivity, your the way you present stuff has to become more and more mathematical in some way. So it has to become more and more rigorous, and then you move away from literature. So the more rigorous you want to keep your discourse, the more the less literary it would be, I would guess.
You know, most of you must have heard of Niels Bohr. He was a great physicist.
yeah.
And he said that after a point of time, as science progresses, it will need to be done in terms of literature and metaphors and examples. It will not be done in terms of mathematics, because mathematics is this very rigorous system through which we try to explain ideas. But this thing that is objectivity, we can only get sort of hold of it. We cannot define it in terms of mathematics or any sort of symbolic language. And that is why the epistemology of different subjects is completely different, because we cannot really explain how things emerge at different epistemic levels. So I don't think that mathematics is going to help us. I think literature is more fundamental in that way.
Yeah, and that's a very big claim that Ayush is trying to make here. And although I understand that he's making it in reference to Niels Bohr, that there's such an emergence with evolution that we cannot have epistemic understanding. That is one objectivity that there's a level, there's a hierarchy, or there's a difference, and after some time, your understanding does not work, and it fails you actually, and you have to adapt to different methods. Maybe it is in our evolution, it is the objectivity itself has evolved in such a way that we cannot fathom it with one singular perspective. That's a big claim. And Ani, would you like to add anything to it?
I would say that even mathematics is a language, so it can be
Obviously it is,
literature. So, and about
and a
Plato,
beautiful one at that.
yes,
It's
and
very boring literature.
no, I'm from an engineering background, so I like boring. It's not boring. Okay, so about Plato, as you said that his allegory of caves and his different forms. Sometimes what philosophers do in trying to understand the universe, they themselves reduce themselves to their own philosophy. So what Plato did or what Socrates did, they killed the creativity or the artistic bent, that heroism that was there in the ancient Greek culture. And you see, soon after Plato and Socrates, the Christians took over, and the Dark Ages started in Europe. So had someone like Heraclitus or Parmenides or the pre-Socratic philosophers who said the world is a hill said for water, Heraclitus said for fire. These people were, and you see, all of it's very poetic. They did not give any proofs, only single one-liners, and most of them were celibates, or they completely abandoned from the universal life. They did not marry. And we had the cynic guy, Diogenes the cynic. He used to curse around, go around and curse people around. So what it is actually, we need to ourselves need to rise up and understand our own selves. So at one point, you reach unknowability, right? Mathematics also has a very big problem, the unknowable or the immeasurable. So you don't try to you just try to know what you don't understand. When if you know you don't understand, maybe then you might try to understand it. So
Uh,
the paradox here.
we have Kalpana Gupta raising his hand. Kalpana, you can speak. Hi,
Hello. Yeah. So I want to add a little point, small
please
point.
do. Please.
Yeah. I feel that literature has some advantage, if we want to say it advantage, because literature within its fold, it can accommodate a number of viewpoints. As said by Russian literary critic Mikhail Bakhtin, that a novel can become successful only if it is polyphonic. That is, it can accommodate a number of viewpoints, and we can see the characters of the novels. They speak from different perspectives, and the author need not necessarily take the ethical responsibility of what they speak. But in the case of philosophy, we find that the author he has to write systematically, uh, um, using his logical apparatus, and he is responsible for what he write. So that is where I find the scope of literature may be quite big, in that respect.
Kalpana has made a good point actually, and since he quoted a Russian critic, I just try to like elaborate what he might have meant with reference to Dostoevsky. So this magnum opus of Dostoevsky. There are two actually, in my opinion: Notes from the Underground and Crime and Punishment. So for in Crime and Punishment, we have Rodion Romanovich Raskolnikov, which is the character protagonist of the story, and he is battling the existential crisis, and he's going through his life, and it is from his experience or from his life that we have to derive an existentialist understanding of the world, and the ethical dictums that he speaks, or the points, the claims he makes, are not to be confused with the claims of Dostoevsky himself. So Dostoevsky is, in a way, able to remove himself from his own story, and that is, we don't attribute all these claims, ethical claims, which have been made in the novel, to Dostoevsky himself, but to the character Raskolnikov. And although we are very sure that no one like Raskolnikov ever existed, but that is why we don't have anyone to blame or put the blame on for such ethical practices or such ethical notions about life. So this is how we could assume literature to be far encompassing or large encompassing, because it frees the writer to write. It frees his imagination in a way, to come up with a to come up with perspectives which are plural, not singular, and not very rigid, not necessarily very factual or emanating from something very rigorously logical. So, any more, Ani? You would like to say something? And I hate to do it, but I'll have to call out names then, if no one speaks other than the four of us who are flashing on the screen. Kalpana, thanks, and please
Ajit,
keep
one
talking.
point I would like to add, if you allow.
Yes, please.
Yeah, so I mean, the discussion that has been going on till now, it comes to me that we are treating, literature in the sense that literature is just a metaphor for, conveying some idea. It is just a better way to convey some idea. But I think literature can be more than that. Literature can be more than I'm so sorry. Literature can be more than a metaphor. For example, I mean, literature can be used to describe a tree. I mean, there is no metaphor in it. It is just a description which gives a lot of meaning to my life. I mean, without being a metaphor, without giving any philosophical idea, literature can give a lot of meaning to my life. So in that sense, also literature is, in my opinion, vaster, if that is a word, than philosophy.
Yeah, that's quite all right, and that's very interesting as well. Would anyone like to add or say anything related to it? Ayush, please.
Yes, yes. So give me a chance. Means
Yeah,
I want to say that
Himanshu, please.
I think because like Kalbar now and Ani has all said that there is some, though there is some sort of some notion of truth or something, some essence there in literature and philosophy, although, but primarily I think there is distinction between literature and philosophy. And let me read something. I think it will clarify your point. So this is a I don't know, means I do not know anything about this poem. This is just by sent to me by our discussant, means he couldn't join now today. So he says that अब नज्म पर कोई डिजाइन लादा नहीं आता, ये ख्याल है कि रो है जिंदा मानूस महसूस किया ख्याल, जिसने नज्म को एक तंजीम अता की है, बड़ी शायरी बड़े ख्यालात से वजूद में नहीं आती, शायरी तरस में भी है, गुस्से में भी है, फरेब से निकलने में भी, यानी शायरी उस जोश, उस तखमीर मीन्स व्यवहार में है जो गम, गुस्सा, तंज कोई भी पैदा कर सकता है। नस्र में आप अपनी बात दूसरों तक पहुंचाते हैं, नज्म में अपने आप तक। And philosophy, I think, has a not necessarily that philosopher would like to convey everything he want to say, and I think there is some means I have heard this, that when a poet writes poetry, and some teacher, means in our school experiences, when teacher explains that, so it can be the case that poet might not have think that interpretation which a teacher has came out with. So there is a means like Kalbarnav said, means after writing in a work, author has gone now, means we can also have a different interpretation. There are more chances of different interpretations in literature than in philosophy, and there is means
Yes.
what should I say, more flexibility in that sense.
That's actually that's very accurate actually. So and to build upon what Himanshu said
And
and what he built on
yes,
Kalparnav's argument, I'd like to ask you guys if you have come up with any piece of art or poetry or literature that you believe is essentially philosophical and inspires a philosophical perspective.
Before that, in regards to what Himanshu said, so
Yes.
Iqbal had, so I guess you guys know Allama Iqbal.
Yeah, I know, obviously.
He was a poet,
yes,
and he
yes,
had
yes.
this he had this diary where he used to write his stray reflections. So I remember one of the reflections very apt here. He said, "A mathematician cannot, but a poet can enclose infinity in a line." So
Yes.
I thought that was pretty apt.
Yes, and poet. There's a contemporary coeval emphasis which was made on poets by Heidegger as well. So Allama Iqbal, I guess, he was writing around 20s, 30s, early 1900s, and at the same time we have Martin Heidegger, who proposed that a poet could do wonderfully well when contrasted with what philosopher could do, and he even like suggested some poets. I don't recall the name of, but he said that poetry was fundamentally more cogent, more able, more capable of understanding the human life, human predicament as an issue. And I would have to leave. Oh, Akash has to leave. That's very unfortunate, Akash, that you have to
I'm
leave.
so sorry,
But
guys,
thank you for
because there is a
joining.
lot of problem. Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. So poetry has that ability, I'd say, and so as Himanshu was saying, there are many interpretations as well of the poetry. So to begin with, this segment wherein I had asked all of you who are coming today to come up with some piece of poetry. I'd like to just share my screen for a while. And there's this 1 minute poem. You must remember Ompuri, who is a legendary actor. This is a movie called Ardha Satya. Have you watched this movie, Ardha Satya? Anyone, guys? Came out in 1982. It's very very good. Deals with the existentialist predicament, the existentialist thought, how the individual is. It grapples with the idea of thrownness or fallenness that you might have heard of, which was given by, and how he has to make sense of what all there is, and how at the end of it, he is doomed to realize that it was all half truth, Ardha Satya. So I'll just quickly share my screen and you'll see Om Puri reading out that poem. And you guys have to tell me what you make of it, because it is in reference to Mahabharat, the Mahabharat, wherein Abhimanyu is going inside the Chakravyuh. And you have to understand, make sense of what the Chakravyuh here implies, and what is the predicament ultimately. So, yeah. Just a second. Can you guys see my screen?
Yes, yes.
चक्रव्यूह में घुसने से पहले कौन था मैं और कैसा था, ये मुझे याद ही न रहे। चक्रव्यूह में घुसने के बाद मेरे और चक्रव्यूह के बीच सिर्फ जानलेवा निकटता थी, इसका मुझे पता ही। चक्रव्यूह में घुसने से पहले कौन था मैं और कैसा था, ये मुझे याद ही न रहेगा। चक्रव्यूह में घुसने के बाद मेरे और चक्रव्यूह के बीच सिर्फ जानलेवा निकटता थी, इसका मुझे पता ही न चलेगा। चक्रव्यूह से बाहर निकलने पर मैं मुक्त हो जाऊं भले ही, फिर भी चक्रव्यूह की रचना में फर्क ही न पड़ेगा। मरूं या मारूं, मारा जाऊं या जान से मार दूं, इसका फैसला कभी ना हो पाएगा। सोया हुआ आदमी जब नींद में से उठकर चलना शुरू करता है, तब सपनों का संसार उससे दोबारा देख ही ना पाएगा। उस रोशनी में जो निर्णय की रोशनी है, सब कुछ समान होगा क्या? एक पलड़े में नपुंसकता, दूसरे पलड़े में पौरुष, और ठीक तराजू के कांटे पर अर्थ सत्य।
Hello. Hello. आवाज आ रही है आपको? Yeah. Could you guys listen to what was being said, what was being recited?
Yeah. I've seen the movie.
Himanshu?
Yeah.
You've seen the movie?
Yeah. I saw it maybe 2-3 years ago, but yeah, I've seen the movie.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. So, what do you guys think is being talked about here? And that's essentially a minute's poem. It was penned by Dilip Chitre. And what is the Chakravyuh? And what is it all about?
It's mostly the existential crisis that he's having. He doesn't know why everybody is starting a family, or why everybody is having kids, or what is the ultimate purpose of going through the hardships of life. So he was I think a middle class person. His father was a policeman, so he became a policeman on his father's father's.
Existence,
Father
yeah.
was very
He's basically showed the way all the time. He's been showed the way all the time. Right. So, and this is the moment when this is the cathartic moment when he reads out the poem from a book which is lent to him by his girlfriend, who is Smita Patel, and he just has this moment ki kya ho raha hai? And essentially, I've never had any choice. I've never chosen anything whatsoever. और अंत में जो होता है कि एक पढ़ने पर नपुंसकता, एक पढ़ने पर पौरुष, और ठीक तराजू के कांटे पर अर्ध सत्य, which is we are weighing everything on a scale of half truth. So there is no truth at all that the society believes in. There's only the subjective my truth that is to be believed in. So that's essentially existentialist. how oxymoronic, essentially existentialist. So, any more such, or should I say, suggestions that you would like to make, or say any speak? Because we've certainly not come to the end of the discussion. We have far to go. We have been joined by Gautam M. Hi, Gautam. You are quite late to the party, but it's all right. We still have drinks left. So,
No, I was there in the session. It's just there was a lot going on in the room, so I had to keep my cameras off.
oh no, you were actually asked or requested to keep the camera on. Now that you have turned on your camera, would you like to say something on the topic, or please enlighten us?
Yeah. I mean, when I feel as if there is something that I can contribute, definitely I will be willing to say something. But as of now, I feel as if I would like to listen more than I can contribute. But if I definitely feel the need, I will definitely say it.
That's fantastic. Tanu, you've not spoken in a while. Would you like to add anything? Because since you're my friend, so I can ask you directly. I have that luxury. Tanu, don't go blank on me, please. Tanu,
No, I
are you
think
here?
she's away with some important work. वो थोड़ी देर के लिए गई है.
Okay.
So I have a question from yes, Gautam.
Please,
कौन था?
please.
Yeah, Himanshu.
Ani.
You were saying something?
Ani.
No, I wanted
Okay,
to share my screen,
बोलिए,
but you go
बोलिए,
ahead.
जो
I'll
भी है.
share. No.
नहीं.
Okay, there is a question,
Ani,
means,
share the screen. अच्छा ठीक है. Himanshu, you
हाँ.
speak.
So the interviewee means I think am I pronouncing right? Iris or
Word
so
off,
she
yeah.
says
Iris
that
word off.
there is a there is a bad means bad side of imagination, that is fantasy, that can be in literature, and there is a good imagination that is in philosophy. Means I couldn't understand why she is means classifying it in good and bad. Means though she says that there can be means the fantasy is a means in to creative imagination. So means I don't resonate with it. And in case of philosophy also, we can have bad philosophy. Hitler would be means I won't say bad or good, but there can be a bad idea, and there can be means a bad idea can be proven with arguments with solid ground. So means there is no case that it is always a good imagination. So means what is the criteria, or should this distinction be gone, or should we question it?
I think
Fantasy is bad
Oscar Wilde
imagination, or
is. I think I'd like to quote Oscar Wilde if he's very apt here. He says that the advantage of emotion is that it leads you to the wrong way, and the advantage of science is that it is not emotion. So the emotions propensity of leading you to bad, what you said, fantasy, is very, what should I say, it's indubitable. That's obviously there. You can fancy anything, and imagination
no,
is
but there is again a
unbound,
question
completely
here.
uncapped.
So the criteria, like you just recently said, means in Mahabharata also, Vidur says that dharma ki paribhasha samay ke saath badalti hai. So in this case also, the criteria of good and bad will be subjective.
Yeah. Good, I guess, good is subjective and bad is subjective, and that's a different debate, obviously. And we should not concern ourselves with such a profound topic, because we obviously need a better internet connection and 2 cups of coffee to keep us awake through the journey, because obviously, and a little more time than just 2 hours, at least 20 days. So we can talk about good and bad, and how they are subjective in a different discussion. But in this way, in this particular regard, or in the light of this discussion, I guess good and bad are differentiated on their propensity of leading us astray to dangerous situations, to fatal situations, to, as you said, as you quoted Hitler, whatever he did, obviously he did not think it was all wrong. He just thought that it was the thing to be done, and it was all right. And why the rest of the world would say he was bad would be because he was endangering so many lives. Not only endangering, claiming so many lives. He killed 72 million or 7 million, so many Jews that you cannot even number. So that's one definition of the good and the bad. How likely is it to lead you astray to a situation where it is fatal to your life. Ritu Sahani has joined. Hi Ritu, would you like to say
I think
something if
this
you
is a
have been
good
here?
time. We can, if we can switch on cameras just for a minute
Yeah,
to get
I
screenshot.
Kalpana, if you could switch on your camera. Tanu has
Just for a minute,
disappeared,
if you are
and
comfortable.
that's very embarrassing. I'll talk to her in person. Kalpana, can you hear us?
Yeah, I have some issues with the camera.
Oh, it's very unfortunate. And how many more people can we have? We can have 3 more people in the frame, and Tanu is such a disappointment. Khair, koi baat nahi.
Okay, you can take a picture.
हो गया Himanshu?
Hi, actually, I'm really sorry. I'm really sorry. Actually I have to go somewhere, so I just leave.
Mm,
I just left the meeting now. So what is happening? I don't know. Sorry.
It's all right. Just wanted you to turn on a camera so that we
Yeah.
can have a picture. No.
Okay, just a minute. Just a minute.
Till the time, Ayush, would you like to say something more? Add more? Tushar, hi Tushar.
Yes. What was the host's name again? Iris Murdoch, I think, right?
Iris Murdoch, yeah, Iris Murdoch. She was both a novelist and a
Yeah.
philosopher.
So she said something about the purpose of literature, which is to mystify things. But then the implication is that literature basically creates this illusion which is not true. So what the job of literature is something illegitimate in a way. But then my question is it that way? Is really literature creating this illusion where it is making us feel something, or is it in some way helping us realize reality in a more truer way, although truer is not a word, but yes, in a more truer way. So for example, in Sartre's novels, even in, I don't think in Camus' novel, but existentialist literature has this theme where this character realizes all of a sudden that he's this thing in this world, and the objects around him are not these clearly defined categories in which we operate. So for example, if someone is going on a tram and a person is sitting and he's in that tram, so all of a sudden this person realizes that, oh wait a second, I'm in this box of tin and steel and iron, and I'm being hurled across the streets, and these are just monkeys, hairless monkeys sitting around me, and basically we are these group of apes with other animals, other creatures on this piece of rock, and we are being thrown around this. We are going around this piece of burning ball of gas, fire. Actually, that is what the sun is, and so this in a way creates a more accurate picture of reality. And this is done through literature, and it makes us feel something. But then, I wonder if really this is mystifying things for us. In a way, it is elucidating reality in a more clearer way, rather than creating an illusion that is illegitimate. So yes.
Okay, yeah. That's a fair point, actually. You asking if what literature does and what the content of literature is, does it stand on the testing grounds of legitimacy? So, how it does it, how it tries to reach at the truth, is the method legitimate? Is it what you were asking?
I think
Is it correct?
I think to be concise, does literature show us a different aspect, a different facet of reality, or is it just an illusion? Is it something that is a total fantasy of some sort?
Yeah, and I would say if it is me on whom the responsibility lies to reply, so my answer to that question would be that what so there's this thing called existential crisis, and we've all had an experience, a personal experience of what it is. And honestly, I hadn't even come across what philosophy is, let alone what existentialism is, before I had my first crisis of such a sort. All right, so I hadn't been exposed to any literature or whatsoever that influenced me into thinking of certain situation like that. I was just it just came naturally from within, that I felt such unhurried realization striking me, that what was I doing here? I looked at myself in the mirror, and then, as you said, you realize that you are distinct from the table, from the chair, from the mirror. You are a body that is able to think and perceive, and what is it that you should do? Where should you lead yourself? So it is something that is not influenced. Right? This is something I would not say innate, but that is something very natural. And in Sartre's philosophy, or broadly the existentialist literature, they're only, what should I say? It is just a repository of such individual experiences. So and trying to find a way out of it. And to that he says, to remedy the predicament that we feel, that and whenever you have such a sensation or such a feeling, you just have to realize that you've been you've been condemned to be free. You're condemned to freedom, and that's Sartre's remedy to our existentialist dread. Not a remedy, actually. That's he's trying to supply a solution simply. So yes, obviously, such descriptions of reality sound a little accurate. They tend to make us believe, or tend to imply that something is being mystified here, and that we are maybe probably being removed, or being distanced from the truth, actually. But I'd say honestly that whatever these people have been able to come up with, or have come up with, that naturally exists already. So their work is just a repository of genuine individual experiences. Yeah.
But that's precisely my point, that these works of literature, it's actually something that comes from within us, and it must have some sort of basis. And so to call that mystification
Yeah.
is not all right, according to me, because it has some basis. So for example,
Yeah.
Peterson has this,
Yeah.
most of you must be knowing about Peterson. Obviously, he's very famous. Yes. And
Jordan
some of you
Peterson.
might not even like him, but he's the most prominent example of bringing out the truth from mythology and narratives and all of that. So one can easily call a typical atheist can call the Bible or the Old Testament or whatever mythology there is to the West, for the West, that has come out of the West, mystification of some sort, and something that is not true. But he pulls out the truth from it. That, look, here lies the truth in this mythology, and you're not looking at it clearly. And so that is what I have to say.
Just to play devil's advocate, the
Yeah.
problem with that stance is that truth by definition has to be not transient, in the way that mathematics is not transient. So that if you give me a premise, if you give me a set of axioms, over a period of time, following the logical steps that are necessary, you and I will come to the same result. So, for instance, that's not the case with myths. I mean, Peterson's interpretation of biblical stories might not be the same as my own, and so in that sense, literature is mystifying because it's not utilitarian. Um, it's not utilitarian in the sense that you can't use literature productively like you can use physics or chemistry or math to make stuff so that it manifests in front of you physically. I I, I, I don't think I'm putting it quite right, but it's not utilitarian. So in that sense, I think if you would classify it into good and bad in that way, that would kind of work, I would say. Also, I would think that mathematics belongs to philosophy because it's an extension of logic, which is a philosophical category. So if we are to do literature versus philosophy, then mathematics is a strong opponent.
Yeah, and I would
But
even say,
yeah, Ani.
yeah, I would even say that, Allama Iqbal, you can't draw a line, but we have economists who come with bullshit mathematics and they win Nobel Prizes. They justify modern monetary theory, which only raises inflation and only makes the bankers rich. So
Yeah.
mathematics can transcend. Even I would say you can prove anything with mathematics. So yeah, and other thing about good and evil we were talking. So this comes usually. I'll share my screen as well. This comes
Sure.
usually when you're talking about subjective realities. My truth or what is the truth. So I would say that when you see yourself, as a tiny speck on the universe, you see like, oh, you must have your truth. If you have that girl or have that job, maybe then it will add meaning to your life. But I would say that it's all an image, and we are. It's just a screen. Just a projection. So let me share my screen. So there is an objective reality, and you need to be courageous enough. What you do is you lose your own sense of your own personal ego. You start losing it out, and everybody is teaching you to do this, gain ego. You'll have this personality and then this. But let me share my screen. I'm sorry, actually, I'm sitting in my office and I have hushed away all my colleagues. Give me some time. Yeah. Is it visible? Can you see this?
Yeah, we can see it.
Yeah, this is a painting by Thomas Cole. It's called The Voyage of Life, Manhood. I had another painting. I'm forgetting the name. Otherwise, I would have shown it. I will add it on the WhatsApp group when I find it on my phone. So this is a
Sure.
guy when he is traveling. He's in a boat. You see, he does not have a boat to take him through the water. And it's about there he sees a light. It's all dark. His hands go up, and he's going down. He does not know where he's going. So there you see this light. I would say this is the objective reality. You see it, and you just travel on the journey like everybody else, but you are alone, right? You have taken the path that nobody has taken before, and there is no right or wrong path, literally, because it's a circle. So multiple ways to reach the center. Right? So he's going, and then he sees this. So I like this printer.
That's very good. Thomas Cole. I'm so disappointed at myself for not having known the right painter. Uh, would anyone like to say something? Say anything? Add anything?
Yes, I think this is very similar to Vivekananda's notion of truth, that it is sort of a circle and we encircle it instead of pointing at it and shooting at it.
It was actually Voltaire, and Voltaire, Swami Vivekananda added another line, so he eclipsed Voltaire.
I
So
see.
even Voltaire would have been proud.
And then I think even more ancient is the Jainist perspectivism. So I think that also is very similar to this, that we can only have these little perspectives.
So yeah, so your
yeah.
ego needs to be so big that you are willing to lose it all. You understand? So it should be so big. It's either everything or nothing. So, and even when it comes, the Shunyavad of Buddhism and Vedanta, so it's 0 and 1. It's 0, Shunyavad. If you feel nothingness, or the nothingness in feels. So that's the opposite, which comes in Vedanta. So yeah.
Very learned members in the discussion. So I'm
I was
very
actually
obliged
waiting
that
for
you
this.
have graced this discussion with your presence. Thanks. And I did not know that office goers are also going to join. So that's again
I just joined 6 months ago, so I just graduated this year.
gracefulness 10,000 times. Yeah, you joined this year.
Yeah, I graduated this year, so
Oh,
I'm just working for the past 6 months only. So I'm still a student, so I lost my 4th year, the fun year of engineering.
and how many of you guys are here from engineering backgrounds? How many engineers here in the group?
Me, I'm a sophomore. I'm a first year.
I'm from DTU. I graduated, but
Okay, and Ayush, are you
Um,
graduate?
no, I'm a first year. I'm from Ramanujan College.
See,
first year.
First year student of philosophy itself?
Yes.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful.
That is I just joined,
Ajit,
like
Ajit, I
Yeah.
think
But I do have
I think there are more.
actually I do have my background. Yeah, go ahead.
Ani, if you could stop presenting a screen.
Say.
Yeah. Himanshu, yeah.
I think I should say something. Complete your
Yes, I
film.
was saying that I was almost about to pursue engineering because in my 11th and 12th I studied science, and I sort of discovered that the rubbish that I think about is called philosophy in LS standard. So then I changed my plans. So yeah, almost an engineer. Right.
We have Mimamsa and Ayush. I agree with what you said. That's I guess the same story for most of us here. I guess Tanu also shares the same story, because
And
I myself come from
yes,
a science
I was
background.
saying
I
that
had
there are
yeah.
not only science background in 12th, but there are more people with engineering graduate background, engineering in graduation. I think Kalparna,
Uh,
Gautam, and few more were there. So I think, and this was the belief that we had, कि philosophy has no boundaries, and we all can talk about it.
yes, we
And
have someone
Gautam, there
new
is question
raising
by
her
Ritu.
hand.
Yes, Ritu also has question,
Mimansa.
and Gautam and Tushar was raising hand.
We have Mimansa currently, and we have Ritu Sahani's message in the inbox. So we'll first like to go to Ritu's message. She says that she's confused actually if writing or even thinking any argument logically can be classified as art, or a work of art. She's still hanging with the question, what is literature and what's not. Ritu, for the second part, we agree with you. We're still there. We have sympathies because we're still grappling with that question. And for the first part, I guess that's very subjective, because I wouldn't say that Bertrand Russell or Wittgenstein did not derive any pleasure from doing what they were doing when they were doing something robustly boring. So, and Mimansa is raising her hand. Mimansa, I'd like you to speak, please.
Hi everyone, good evening. Am I audible?
Yes, perfectly audible.
Yeah, so first of all, I would like to apologize for my silence. I have been quietly listening to all of you guys, and I think, as you have already mentioned, this is literally full of intellectual people, and I could actually see philosophers talking about other philosophers. Actually, one of my friends sent the link, and he said that it's really going to be interesting, so I joined it. And so I would just brief about myself. I'm a second year student of history honors in Lady Shri Ram College, and I have no prior or any experience of philosophy. I've not read many stuff, but just to give my opinion on literature and philosophy, it's very vague. Please correct me if I'm wrong. So I was just thinking, even in literature, we can divide it like a philosopher writing a literature. For example, Sartre writing Hell is Other People. That's his book, right? And the other one can be, like you already said, Faiz Ahmad Faiz, that poem, the Dil Now, sorry, I'm forgetting it again. I always forget, but it's my favorite piece. So it could be like when he was writing that verse, maybe he was not thinking that, oh, people are gonna read it and they'll think that, wow, this is a philosophy of life that I'm writing. Maybe he was just expressing his ideas about life, and how and nowadays we are interpreting that he was giving his philosophy. So what I could make out is that maybe philosophy is just a person's thought. When he was writing it, he didn't mean that I'm writing a philosophical literature or philosophical poem or something. So that's a very vague idea. Please correct me and please give your opinions. And this room is literally full of intellectuals, and
अरे
and
भैया,
and thank you for this session, Ajit.
ऐसा कुछ भी नहीं है.
No, it is. I must say. I
uh,
must say.
we just novices, as I was having a word with Tanu before we began today's session, and she asked me if I was nervous, and I said that I shan't be nervous because we're all novices after all. Even if our professor was joining us today, I would also include him in the list of novices, because in philosophy everyone's a novice and always a novice. So we're always learning, we're always building on our current understanding and getting to understand better. We can never reach the pinnacle, so we're all in the journey. So you needn't classify us as some different race. And for what you said earlier, that's really what I would like to also believe and agree with, that when Faz was writing his couplet, he needn't have thought कि ये कुछ ऐसा है जो बहुत philosophical है or would inspire a philosophical thought necessarily. But essentially, it was also the question that I had placed before everyone in the panel. If philosophy an inalienable part of literature, like as in, can you completely do away with the influence some philosophical thought has on your work? So can you have something that is rigorously and purely philosophical, and at the same time can you have something that is rigorously and purely literary? So I guess, and that needs our meditation, which will last, which should outlast this, certainly outlast this discussion, and hopefully not outlast our lives. But some of us comes up with the answer.
We'll
Some
come. We'll come. We'll have a rebirth. So if we
Yeah,
don't answer, we'll be born again.
that's for the hope.
And
Cheers.
things converge, right? So the difference between philosophy, literature, mathematics, they all converge as you go out further and further.
That's a very big claim, and I'll not say anything on it. And it needs meditation certainly. But Mimamsa, what you said, your name Mimamsa is very of a very proficient. मतलब क्या बोलूं, Himanshu would like to elaborate what Mimamsa is. It's Mimamsa, if I'm not correct, Himanshu.
Yeah,
I
Uttara
think it
Mimamsa.
comes from Indian philosophy.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, very very cogent in context of Indian philosophy.
Is your real name?
Yes,
Is
it's my
it-
real name.
Okay, I thought some department is joining us. The philosophy.
Oh
I think
no.
some department has this.
So
Yeah, I think
your
Harsh
being here is very
Philosophical
apt,
Society is called
Mimamsa.
Mimamsa.
Your being here is very apt, Mimamsa, because Mimamsa it is what we are doing essentially. So,
Yeah.
so thank you. And
Yes,
that's a very good
this is
question that you posed, and hopefully
analysis.
everyone's going to. Yeah. And ABCDEF, I'm sorry, is again raising his hand. And I guess we have pointed this out so many times that next time you'll always remember to keep your name, and first thing you'll do is change your name. All right, you could speak, my friend, please.
Oh, right. About what Mimasa said, I thought I might have something to add because I'm into poetry a lot myself. And she was talking about how Faiz, when he was writing, he जब आप लिखते हो तो आप ऐसे सोच के नहीं लिखते कि इसमें मुझे क्या आइडिया एक्सप्रेस करना है. So about that, actually Iqbal wrote about this categorically. He would put poets and poetry in a hierarchy, and the highest hierarchy was the poetry that would answer philosophical questions. He called that higher poetry categorically, and he would place himself in that category, obviously. And he would not accept people calling him a shire. He would say, I'm not a shire. My poetry is a device. I want to say something, and it's communicating that. So for instance, his falsafa khudi is a complete philosophy, complete exposition on the self, which borrows from Bergson and Nietzsche and whatnot. So I think even within that spectrum, you have someone like Rahat Indori or Faiz Ahmad Faiz or John Elia. These are people who write purely for aesthetic fulfillment. They are expressing their their aesthetic feelings and ideas, which we can reciprocate when we read, and that serves a different purpose. But I would say that there is a kind of poetry which exclusively answers questions that are philosophical, more spiritual, but also philosophical in nature, which is uh, which is which has a purpose and is not an end in itself, like the poetry of Faiz, where you just read it and you're filled with awe, and that's it. That's its purpose. It fills you with awe. But I would say that yeah, you could classify poetry also in different categories in that way.
That's quite accurate, actually. Ani, would you like to say anything, or Kalpavarna? If you would like to hear more from you.
Yeah, I was listening to what you all were discussing. So Himanshu raised a point quite some time ago about imagination, bad imagination and good imagination. Now I think that post-enlightenment thinkers, they are more concerned about truth, and they cannot appreciate fantasy and what Lewis Carroll said, that nonsense fiction. In literary tradition also, there was a tradition of critiquing reason that became prominent with surrealism, when they used to critique reason in a systematic way and tried to find human subconscious, then folly, madness. These things were brought into front by the surrealist thinkers. Now the trend is that in nowadays also many people think that they are more concerned with truth, and literature and philosophy, then this need to be avoided. This is a trend which is running nowadays, and literature speaks of these complexities of human emotion. So I want to um, learn from all of you that what you think in this respect, that I could not articulate my question, but that what is not logical or reason as given by enlightenment thinker, that should not be studied or that should not be given much attention. What will be?
Kalpana, that's why we had romanticism following enlightenment. We had romantic thought, which was obviously in contrast with what enlightenment thinkers were doing. There was rephrased, not rephrased, actually, a shift in perspective, a shift in emphasis from reason to human emotions to human subjectivity, from where the human was seeing itself and seeing the others. And we have John Keats dwelling with the idea of death. We have Emily Dickinson writing poems on the romantic period is certainly in contrast with what enlightenment thinkers do. And literature, uh, uh, it is something that I would speak from my own experiences, that philosophical questions only became what should I say, important to me, or concern me when I asked them for myself. What is God? Does he intervene in my life? What is the nature of human subjectivity? What should I be doing with my life? And what is cowardice? What is actually courage? I hadn't asked these questions for most of my life, for all my life, up until 6 7 months months ago, not actually 9 months ago, when we were hit by a very devastating second wave of the COVID-19 pandemic. So for the first time, I asked these questions from myself, and they were originating from within me. All right. So until unless these questions don't come from within you, you are not as interested in finding a solution to them. You're only reading history. You're only reading someone else asking that question and someone else supplying an answer for it. For literature, I'd say how literature helps is it gives you this picture of someone else suffering, and in some way it plucks these chords wherein you can empathize with that character. Although you may not be in complete sympathy with the character, may not be in complete what should I say, आप बिल्कुल उसकी तरह नहीं है, but थोड़ी थोड़े तो हैं. So you sympathize with him, and you take a keen interest on how the story develops, and on the journey you would find out that some problems are actually your problems as well. Wherein philosophy is very, as I would not like to use the word acrid, a little tasteless. Philosophy is a little tasteless, so it takes time to come to you or to occur to you, whereas literature has some appeal to it, and it draws you towards itself, and in doing so it can open new perspectives. It can allow you to see human suffering, human subjectivity from these lenses, wherein you are more sympathetic to the characters, and by virtue of it, you also become sympathetic to yourself. So that's again one of the abilities of literature. If I've been able to say what I had wanted to, but पता नहीं अभी क्या हो रहा है. But so Ani has been smiling all the while. Ani, please.
I always smile.
That's very good. That's
Excuse me, यहाँ पे कोई कल्प अर्नब का जो क्वेश्चन था उसको एक बार रिपीट कर सकता है क्या? I could not follow. I had no idea.
Kalpana was asking if I
just want to say something.
Yeah, please.
I think I can relate to Kalpana. Are you talking about the means two kinds of reason which you also previously had raised this point of the idea of deductive reasoning of post-enlightenment period and the teleological reasoning which ancient had? Is it related to that? Am I following it right?
Yeah, quite
Yes,
related,
right.
I can say.
Yes. So I think Kalpana, his question is more means much important because it is related to another big problem of reason. Means what ancients when I say ancient means the ancient Greeks, what they were thinking of reason in that sense, or what post enlightenment think. Descartes, etc. They were thinking of reason. When Aristotle is saying reason and when Descartes is saying reason, these are two different things. And there is a teleological reasoning and there is a deductive reasoning. And the result of deductive reasoning we have seen now, in form of modern sciences and physics, etc., which has been also criticized by Heidegger and many other thinkers. So he's saying that I think that this deductive reasoning has created or portrayed that fantasy as bad imagination. Is it so, Kalparnam?
Most importantly, I think that art as a whole, it occupied a not prominent position.
Yes,
If we
not
see
only
before
literature.
Enlightenment, then art and literature, it occupied a prominent position in human thought. Now art and literature became a backdrop. They are thought
Yes.
They are thought not so necessary like science. And what
And
Ajit was
it's the
also
result of
saying.
that this reasoning simply. Yes. We have another
Yeah, yeah.
thinker also, Vishal, between us. Vishal is my classmate in Ramanujan College. He has also currently in Hindu College.
Okay. Yeah. So I wanted to add a point.
Yeah, Ani, please.
Yeah. So I found that painting. So I'll just share.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, about the thing that Aparna was saying, for me, I would say that art and philosophy, it's basically a means to, escape, not escape, but transcend is a better word, to the vanities of life, these feelings and emotions and, all this thing, that stuff that troubles a normal human being, family, uh, status, job, etc. I mean, literally all the things that a normal person worries about as soon as he's there. So this painting, you see, uh, Constantinus. I can't pronounce the full name, but yeah. So I think this person is a Greek. Yeah, but he drew it in 1906. This is a Greek name. So the sun is passing the sign of Sagittarius. So you see this guy, he's shooting at the eagle or whatever the bird this is. So this is like a challenge and opportunity that I can rise above all the he's standing on top of a mountain, so he can see everything. Everything looks the same when you are at a height. Love, hate, all the opposites, they start looking the same thing. It's the same thing, right? So you have haters, and but even your haters are your lovers only. It's in a way. You have all these celebrities, the people like to hate this celebrity or hate this philosopher, but they still give him that recognition. So it's kind of an affirmation. So this is the person who's trying to rise above all that, and he's trying to reach the skies. I mean, as a metaphor, hitting the eagle. So for me, it's the use of literature should be for
Yeah.
it's this only. Yeah.
Okay, that's very interesting. I had forgotten completely that you could also come up with paintings, your favorite paintings. I had only that's
I'm too lazy
something.
to. I
Yeah.
would have been a painter. I'm too lazy, but
No, like yesterday only. I guess yesterday itself. I when I posted it on group that I would like you all to come up with some poems or some stories or your monologues from a play. I completely forgot that painting is also an art form that is very in line with because
with Instagram age, we have lost the painters.
yeah, we've lost the
Everybody is a
painters.
photographer, so they have lost the art with the charm.
Everyone's a photographer, but no one's a painter. That's a
Yeah.
sad reality. So, anyways, so we have any more comments? We're still young and happy to go on. Still have
Yes,
13
I do
minutes
not.
of enthusiasm left.
we can.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
No,
yeah,
it's not limited. We can go on if we can.
Yeah, that's contingent on the fact that people keep speaking. And Tanu is such a disappointment, as I said. Some of my friends who joined and left are again, we have to negotiate our terms of friendship. So, yeah, Yush, please, you have kept the legacy.
Yeah, so I could not come up with a piece of poetry or some lines from a movie or something which are philosophical in nature. But I was watching Game of Thrones very recently. I'm sorry, I disappoint all of the GOT fans here. I watched it very recently, a couple of months ago, and there was something philosophical in it.
I
That
haven't watched it yet, so that's all right.
Yeah, I
Then-
won't be giving any spoilers. It's just the theme that the show has, or any historical show has this particular theme where, the characters, they talk in a very weird way. Like they enunciate words like they do not have the same accent as we do. At least the English accent is very different, as if they're trying to sound very tribal and all of that. But then I wondered, did people actually acted like this, very in a very caricatured way? The kings talking to their ministers in the way that they do? Not really. People were just awkward even back then, because human nature is like that. We are the way we are because our ancestors were the way they were, right? And then I was looking at there are different houses in the show, right? And they try to they joust for power in the region of Westworld. Not Westworld. It was Westeros. Yes, it was Westeros. And I just realized at a point watching the show that really all of these princes and all of these kings are completely clueless. Like, they have no idea what they're doing. Like, think about thousands of years into the future. Like, think about the great kings of the past. I was trying to correlate it with actual reality, and I was trying to think of real kings of the past. Like, they were doing these things and they were fighting for. Well, Carl Sagan said this very famously, that in the ancient times, man used to fight under the light of trillions of stars for a fraction of land on Earth, something like this. And they were doing this with a sense of grandiose that we're trying to do something here, and they really had no idea. And I thought, well, really, we are something very similar in that way, that we're leading our lives, and the big corporations are doing their stuff, the politicians are doing their stuff, but really we do not have any idea as to what we are doing. No idea whatsoever. Like, the scientific theories and all of that, it's going to go away, and we're just these monkeys who are trying to
Just
navigate
mode
the
of
world.
test suspended in a sunbeam.
Yeah. We are all as clueless as I am right now, trying to make this point. So
Now I again quoted Carl Sagan, since you mentioned his name. I have admired Carl like anything. So whenever he's brought up in discussions, I have orgasmic shivers. So, but yeah, obviously he was a popularizer of science, but at the same time, he's such a humble man, such a man to look up to.
also a poet.
Also a great poet. So what you said is essentially correct, and कभी-कभी लगता है कि in trying to find this subjectivity in truth and material worth and things like that, are we forgetting or missing out on what we should be doing as a natural consequence of being here? That is to titillate our senses, to be moved by emotion, to be as random as we can be, to be as natural and savage as we can be, instead of binding ourselves in notions of truth and falsity, and notions of the good and the bad and things like that. That's again debatable. That's again very, very good. That should make a good topic for a debate, and we can have it. And obviously, if fortune favors us, we can have it offline someday, maybe 30 or 40 years later. So let's see when. Memansa, would you like to add something, or and some people other? We had many people actually.
I'm sorry, I'm the only one who's
Tushar raised
adding
hand. Tushar was there.
stuff here, but
No, that's all
Yeah.
right.
yeah,
Gautam,
actually,
would you like to say something?
I mean, there is. I have 10 minutes before before I have to leave. I have a class to take, but in those 10 minutes, I would like to ask all of you this one simple question. Of all the questions that you try to sleep with, there might be one question, probably, obviously, philosophical in nature, that you try to reconcile with. Like, at least at the end of life, this is one question that I would like to answer, or would like to find a response to. I would like to ask each and every one of you to give me that question. Probably there might be one that I might be not aware of. So I would like to use that opportunity right now. So we
Yeah,
can,
please do,
I can use myself as the operative. I can start with one person, and then we can go to the one after the other. We can start with
So
Himanshu.
you'll be
If that's
asking
all right with you.
ask a question directly.
No. I
One
will
and
not
all.
ask you the question. I'm just asking what is that one question that you would like to find a response to at the end of your life?
Oh, oh, that's very good.
I would
And
like to say something.
Okay. Let's start with Ani.
Yeah, like you said questions, right? So I would say a fulfilled life would be when you know the answers to all the questions, but you still don't have the urge to ask any question.
I didn't get you what?
that's very intuitive.
Yeah, and
Okay.
Gautam is asking us to come up with that, or to share what that one question that maybe disturbs us most and we are most desperate to find an answer for, right? Is it right, Gautam?
Yeah.
That's very good. Ani, would you like
I
to go
think
first? Ayush?
I think mine would be, why is there something rather than nothing? Because Parmenides said this, that if
No.
something is, then it could not have come out of nothing. But if nothing is, then how can something be? And yeah, well, daily existential crisis stores for everyone.
The classic philosophical question.
What about you, Ajit?
I think some of your
Himanshu will go first before me.
Okay.
Himanshu.
no. I was commenting on Ayush and Anni, etc. I think you are wasting time graduating. You are already graduated. It seems that in philosophy.
Yes.
you said what did you say? I mean, what were you trying to say?
I think you people are already graduated in philosophy. I don't know what's your background, but it seems that.
Yeah, I have a bit
Given
bit.
that you guys are from different backgrounds, I hadn't expected. It was a fear of mine that I would first have to elucidate what philosophy essentially is to all the people in the panel. And I'm very thankful that people here have some bits of idea what philosophy is. Not some, actually. I'm surprised. I'm really surprised कि सबको अच्छे से पता है. That's very good. We are in a very good group. I'm very fortunate कि we'll have many more discussions to come in the future. And Gautam, to your inquiry, I'm not sure because there are quite many. There are questions that what should I do? That's the question. That what should I do next? What should I be doing next? Because I wouldn't want to classify the world as deterministic, determined by mechanical laws. But if I really have to do something, what it is, and on what grounds do I lay that judgment, or what on where do I recline my back कि भाई ये ऐसे करना है? Because I have never been into religion. I denounced religion very early on, and at times I find there's nothing dictating what I should be doing, and I at times feel that's very unfortunate. I wish I could be as ignorant as someone naturally is, so that I could just follow some directions and lead my life of ignorance and die peacefully someday. And right now it feels very difficult because I have absolutely nothing to base my actions on, and that inquiry is very taxing mentally, very taxing psychologically. At times I have trouble sleeping, and because भाई बहुत मुश्किल है. So I would like to know I would like to know what should I be doing.
I think ये भी कहना कि हमें नहीं पता है, या फिर ये कहना कि हमें नहीं पता है कि हमें क्या करना है, इज एन एक्ट इन इटसेल्फ. तो वो तो एकदम एक ओवरआर्चिंग चीज बन गई कि नाइलिज्म भी एक सॉर्ट ऑफ मीनिंग देता है हमारी लाइफ्स को. पर हिमांशु ने कुछ बोला था और मैं कहना चाहूँगा, आपने तो मेरा दिल ही तोड़ दिया, क्योंकि मेरे मम्मी पापा चाहते थे कि मैं इंजीनियरिंग करूँ, और अब आप कह रहे हैं कि कोई फायदा ही नहीं है फिलोसफी की डिग्री परस्यू करने का.
नहीं, फायदा इसलिए नहीं है क्योंकि आप ऑलरेडी हैं. दैट्स अ कॉम्प्लीमेंट.
मैं ये कह रहा हूं कि आप
नहीं वो आई नो
No, there is much
I'm
lot
younger
to
than
do
you. आप
after
मुझको तुम
graduation
कह के
also.
बात करी मुझसे. छोड़ क्या चीज?
So it's not a problem. उसमें कोई बात नहीं है.
हाँ बोलिए.
Ritu
मैं
has
सुना
left
नहीं
the
था क्या
meeting
बोला.
before Mimamsa also is fed up with what we are doing. So Mimamsa, would you like to answer Gautam's question? And Gautam, at last you'll not leave without telling us what is that one question that you would like to answer. All right?
Probably I'll take this opportunity and say it because I think many people are being awkward or they're being hesitant to provide us that question
No,
that they really want to work on
I
in
don't
their
guess
life.
it's like
And that's
that.
totally all right with me. The question that I want to work at the end of the day is a question that was framed by one of the professors in first semester where I'm studying. It was Mrinal Kohl. He asked a really simple question: what's the relationship between epistemology and metaphysics? And I think I will take up my entire lifetime to find a response to that question. Like, what is the relationship between epistemology and metaphysics? Something that is
Yeah. That's
not
that's a very
answered in.
big question, actually. Even I remember when we were reading ancient Greek philosophies in the second semester. Yes, I asked my professor if there could be a metaphysic without there being an epistemology, and she asked me to ponder over it myself. And obviously, after that, something happened in the month of March 2020, and we all know what happened. So we've not been able to get back where, and I certainly not been able to make the best sense of my question, let alone find an answer. So that's a very big question that you are asking here, Gautam, and I wish you all the best. That of all of us, you are the one selected one who's able to finally fortunately arrive. Because see, the at the back of your head, when you know that there's a very less chance of you arriving at the solution of your questions that trouble you daily on a regular basis, that's very disheartening. That's very uh, what should I say, despondent a thought, because you sort of tend to feel like very helpless, and then there's this urge of bandwagoning on something that is commonplace. So at times I just feel कि मैं भी कुछ किसी धर्म में join कर जाता हूँ, and I just follow the way. So it must be very easy for me to lead a life of peace, of ignorance, whatever you may call it. So the fact that not the fact, actually, that the fear of not ever reaching that point or reaching a solution, it is also very daunting. But I can just wish you all the best, and wish everyone here who's troubled by any question. Vimansa, do you have such a question?
Hi again, no other question except that what is a question? If you actually start questioning everything, then you'll question what is a question itself. But yeah, this is this is all. But yeah, again, I'm just grateful for this discussion, and I'm glad that I could join it.
Arey bhai. Very grateful to Himanshu for
No.
doing
No,
and
not for me.
Tanu
Means
actually
just did.
थोड़ा सा गुस्सा हूँ.
Sorry to interrupt. Himanshu, I have to leave. Can you just tell me the question that you want to?
Find the answer of, yeah, Himanshu, please.
Okay. I think you remember, Gautam. I think you was not there in that class. Kalparnav might remember it. Kalparnav created means he beautifully explicated that question of reason again, means the teleological reason and deductive reasoning. So we have seen those two types of human reasoning and its result in every field of science, medicine, law, etc., etc. Now we are seeing this contemporary world is the result of reasoning in the sciences. And now I would be means if there is some form of future reasoning of human reasoning, means what would be the new reason, or can there be anything, means can there be any other conception of reason, human reason, than these two of teleological reasoning and deductive reasoning which we have seen till now?
I was thinking of you taking up a cosmopolitan questions, but okay, this is
that's not a question. That's a dead means that's a dead aim. Means that's not a question. So Kalparnav would be means more explicate upon it. Kalparnav, please say.
Yeah, no, I was to say about what Ajit was saying, what to do in life when you don't have any authority, when you don't have any belief, what to do. I think this is a basic question, and basically in ancient India we can see that life is wholly predetermined, not in ancient India, particularly in all ancient traditions, because religion comes as a comprehensive package. So in India also we have 4 purusharthas: dharma, artha, kama, moksha. What to do in life to acquire any of these 3 or all of these 3 in succession. all of these four in succession. As Professor Dayakrishna also points out in one of his articles that for a modern man, these four purusharthas is insufficient. So again, I resonate with his words that ignorance is bliss. And Schopenhauer, German philosopher, would also say that even knowledge adds to suffering. It is not that in India we believe that through knowledge we can come out of suffering. Then still it is also a question whether through knowledge we can come out of suffering. Because in West, knowledge was used as power. I am just telling in broad divisions, not to create divisions between East and West. So, but in West, it was when Bacon told knowledge is power. Then it was to acquire the world with the help of knowledge. In India, we said knowledge is used for realization. So then also.
Okay.
I guess for knowledge, I belong to Franz Kafka's school of thought, who says that first sign of beginning to understand is a wish to die. So that's precisely
Actually,
why.
knowledge, yeah, when Foucault said knowledge is power, so these people saw the worst two world wars. They saw so many people getting killed. So they thought maybe if they have power, they can stop this. So, and about knowledge, I would still say that knowledge is something which relieves suffering. It clears all the fears. It clears all apprehension. It is actually bliss. Ignorance is bliss for 90% of the people. But if you once you see that cave, Plato's, if you see that it's only a shadow, then you can't help it. Then you have to take that journey. You have to go down in that painting that you saw, Journey of Manhood. He's holding his hands like this. So you have to go like this. Then there is no turning back. Once if you leave that.
Yeah, Ani, I also think suffering is all can accept suffering. From Buddha to Shankar, that dukkha trayabhighatat, suffering is there. But
And
believe that from
Siddhartha
knowledge we
Gautam
can
was
come out of this
upset.
suffering.
Yeah, Siddharth Gautam was upset about the condition of the Indian society at that time. So he thought, leave all this. I need to clear this mess up first. Then he left his own kingdom. He abandoned the kingdom, and India. You see a rise of philosophers and sannyasis. It's a sign that the country is having a leadership crisis, and we see that in India even today, even after so many years. There's a big leadership crisis in this country. So that is said by Bhishma Pitama in today's Bhishma Pitama, that he laid on the Shaiya today, on this day. So he says that a rise of philosophers, a rise of sannyasis is a sign that the country is without a leader. So
Yeah.
you need that, dund. You need to somebody who can exercise that dund over the people. So we see
Who
that
is
even today.
modern Bhishma Pitama? You said modern Bhishma Pitama.
Bhishma Pitama in Mahabharata, he says, when you see that there is a
No, okay.
rise in the number of in Raj Yoga, I think the last parva he gave Raj
Moksha
Dharma.
Dharma Parva, I think.
Yeah, Krishna himself says, मुझसे क्या मोक्ष पूछा है अर्जुन को बोल मुझसे क्या पूछा है he ये बताएंगे राज कैसे करना है इन्होंने राज किया his kingdom he was not the king but he ruled it so he is the main protagonist. Okay, then Mahabharata में we'll have something बाद में but so
No, it's very interesting.
So-
Before yes, Ajit. Yes.
No, nothing. I wouldn't have
Bolo na,
intervened.
go,
It's
go.
just that
Bolo.
it sort of appears that we have been, we have taken a detour into something else. I don't know, but it's all right. It's very natural for philosophy to be like that, and now history is witness कि कुछ भी discussion शुरू होता है तो वो कहीं पे भी पहुंचता है. We have a certain line of arguments being taken down and being moved in some other direction, and then things like that go on, and that's all right. Mutasim, if by now I have been able to recall your name correct, that's all right. Would you like to say
Right,
something?
that's right.
Add anything?
So are we still following Gautam's question because I had lost my connection for a while?
You can follow it for us because we'd obviously like to know what all miseries people are facing here in their lives, because there's a little helpful for people like me because certainly my life was certainly more blissful before I came to this department, and now I'm leaving with more miseries than solutions. So yeah.
So, well, what he essentially wanted to ask, I thought, was not what his words implied. So, for instance, if he's asking of a question that keeps you up at night, I would say it's not the question. It's an undercurrent of, uh, feeling unfulfilled, feeling incomplete, which is the natural state that we are in. Even as modern people, even more so, we see how the mental health crisis is just it's going over the roofs. So what essentially I think that question translates to is how you manufacture meaning in your life, how you make your life meaningful, which the only place we find an answer to that is in religious traditions. So if i want to if i want to if I want that feeling of incompleteness to subside, then it's not enough to just answer a question. That's too superficial. You have to revolutionize your entire life. So we're talking about Gautam Buddha, for example. So he started out with a set of existential questions of why is there suffering, and he saw people die when he was going on his chariot. And then this really pisses me off sometimes is people really associate Buddha with meditation. No one wants to talk about how he left his entire kingdom. He left his wife. He revolutionized his entirely. He left everything that was dear to him, something we can't even imagine. The only thing that's a remnant of neo Buddhism is just meditation, spooky sitting in one place for 15 minutes a day. So I think to in order to quench that thirst, which manifests itself sometimes in the form of a philosophical question, you have to live the right life. That includes everything. That includes uh, rituals. That includes poetry, art. I mean, we're talking about how art and poetry is potent. Tell me, what is the largest source of art and poetry that we as humans have? It's religion. the,
Yeah.
the the greatest form of architecture, the best art, the most the songs which strike me most as most deep are all motivated with sort of a divine essence. So I think we need much more than just a question to get rid of that thirst. You have to change the way you live, find something meaningful to do, so that every moment in my life is so full of vitality that I don't have space left for a question to arise in me. Like I'm living so intensely that I'm so full of meaning that the questions just lose their weightage. They become irrelevant to me. Not that I know their answers. I still don't know the answers, but the answers don't matter. I don't have space in me for those answers because I'm so full already.
Right.
I think this is the sar of
Yeah.
Vedanta or Sufi falsafa or other modes of religious philosophy in general. So that would be my 2 cents.
But then the question is, then there is another question: how to revolutionize my life? Then how to live? It all comes back to philosophy. It's like there is no way out of this.
No exit.
Yeah.
So then the
Maybe
thing
it's
about that
in
is,
denunciation. Revolutionization is
well, it's not just, see, because we have to realize that any cultural tradition, let's say for instance, because I'm most closely intimate with Sufi Islam, for example, or even the Vedant philosophy, even the Upanishadic Vedic traditions. Now these are traditions that have evolved over thousands of years, and these are traditions which have been constituted by people who had these questions. The question you just asked, what is the way of life? So over thousands of years, these systems have evolved such that they have accommodated within them these different facets, which can exactly fulfill. A systematized system of philosophy cannot do that. You have to have an institute, a factory that has evolved over thousands of years that somehow manufactures meaning in your life. So there is no substitute for religion there. I heard Ajit say how he had denounced religion. I mean, I could relate to him because a few years ago I was exactly the same, be a Richard Dawkins type atheist. And but I think maybe it's just subjective, but over a period of time you have to suspend all rational calculations and logical deductions and just take in the entire system as being one aesthetic whole, which is the only source of meaning that you have in this world, primarily because of the historical weight behind it. It has come thousands of years of art, of poetry, of longing, of this same desperation, of this same
Same question.
this for meaning. So I don't think you can find that anywhere other than religion. It's just not possible. You cannot find a sense of community anywhere other than religion. So when you're, let's say I'm a Christian, I get to go to church every Sunday. That sense of community is in itself a process of manufacturing meaning in my life, of making me
Yeah.
of adding to that fulfillment. So all of that only when you have an entire organized tradition within itself. Now that may not be scientific, that may not be very rationally appealing, but nonetheless it's our only way out.
Hmm. That's very intuitive. That's very informative, actually. Ayush, would you like to say something?
No, I don't have anything to say. Thank you.
Kalpana, any comments?
Yeah, it is enlightening what he said, but at the same time, I find it problematic because what scientific revolution, enlightenment revolution, they introduced in us a type of skepticism, and I think we can never be cured from it. And the ancient way of living, if we are to imitate in modern and postmodern, essentially these traditions should be reinterpreted. This should be reread, not the modernist attitude that they should be rejected. They should be reread, reinterpreted, but to relive the life of the ancient. I don't know how much we can, but still it is enlightening. Yes, I always say that it is a religion as a whole, it can give you meaning. But as a postmodern living in 21st century, how much can you derive from this, and whether you could relive such questions need to be thought. I don't think it can be answered within a minute or two, but it can be thought,
I
I think.
actually completely resonate with what you say. I understand with what you mean about how skepticism, that it wasn't the case. We did not have scientific methods of analysis before, and so that the traditions had much more potency. But what I find in my own phenomenology, in my own experience, is that when you are suffering, when that gaping hole of meaninglessness within you is intense enough, the skepticism is transcended automatically. You don't have a choice left. So very quickly I would like to relate this. So Kierkegaard has this book called Fear and Trembling, in which he talks about faith, and the example he gives is of Abraham. I don't know if all of you know the story, but God asked Abraham to sacrifice his son. So there he explains it. Abraham had, it was a, he explains it beautifully. I mean, obviously I won't be able to do justice to it, but he explains how even though his sacrificing his son was a contradiction, it was a logical contradiction, but
It was
yes,
Abraham
but
dilemma, I call it.
his faith,
Yeah.
his faith to God transcended it, and it's only that love, that faith, that can transcend it. And he was right. I cannot look at God the same way as the ancients looked at him, because I know of the postmodern materialistic paradigm. But at some point, the just the need for that kind of I don't know what to call it, that kind of fulfillment, that becomes so strong that it's a spiritual movement in itself. You can't stop it.
That's quite right. It's quite right.
Appreciate
Yeah,
those
Wonderful.
points.
Vasu,
Yeah. Last point. Yeah. I appreciate those. Basically, the trans, all have been thought, and we know, and yeah, we can appreciate this. That is what.
Mutasim, are you graduate already?
Oh no, I'm in my first year of engineering.
Where?
IIT Kanpur.
Oh, you're nearby, quite nearby.
I'm in Mumbai though. We have an online semester. First semester is online.
क्या बोलूं भाई?
Vasu,
It's all right. Yeah, Himanshu, would you like to add something? Mimamsa, we have
Yes,
some
yes.
silent spectators.
yeah,
Tushar,
before
Vedant,
I
Vishal.
have few points to make. So before everyone leaves, or some of them has left. So one thing is that please, we don't want it to put anything formal in this left, Vedant has left. Anything formal in this discussion, etc. Just this point that just like we had a very wonderful glimpse of what philosophy beyond borders or philosophy beyond disciplines can be, just like we are seeing here now. So just share it with many people, means as much as you can with
On
those
the
who
group.
loves to
Yeah.
think. Yes. Anyway, and there is no boundary except that they loves to think and they loves to hear, and we are here to listen you. And second thing is that if you don't resonate with what the topics we are discussing, please bring your topics to us and
Yes.
introduce us to new things. This is the thing. And with what Modosim was saying, uh, I think means religion isn't is a human dimension, and it cannot be avoided in any sense. Means no age, no revolution or etc. Can avoid it, or it avoids, means there is a whole part of human civilization that will be ignored in that sense. And building on that, what we were just discussing, or what we are, if we see that what thoughts or what the thinkers we are quoting, the philosophers we are talking about, they are coming from a set tradition, because we are acquainted from them. And that is why we are, means we ourselves are also products of our time, and that is how every thinker, every writer, etc. would be and will always. So we also need to think beyond the set traditions which we read in books, etc. Just to means to make point my summary of the distinction of philosophy and literature, I would say that just like many of you have quoted many philosophers and many writers and many artists going beyond the boundaries of metaphysics also, or talking metaphysics through art and talking philosophy through literature, etc. Means this is a lot of there is a lot of complexities, and this is a complex relation of what a human being can do. And that is the uh, we have many, I should say, proofs of this phenomenon. Because if we see the Mahayan Buddhists, they were totally, means in their sense, they were totally related to, or they were totally focusing on the idea of realization, or the nirvana. If we see, they were created as such a marvelous form of Buddhist iconography, the art form. And we have many examples of, like I think Mustaqim Mutasim was saying about
Mutasim.
the Mutasim was saying that contribution of religion in arts, etc., architecture, building. And if I would say the Baitul Hikmah was the center which created all these things, and from where all this movement started in the Arabic world, and this also influenced Indian philosophy, I would say, because the Shohrawardi tradition also came here. So the I would say that the idea or the relation of philosophy and literature is a complex relation, because what a human being can do, can achieve, can express is beyond boundaries. It can also go beyond, means the set boundaries of philosophy or metaphysics. And yes, it is clear that philosophy or literature is not only philosophy. And if we would say that literature has some resemblance or some similarities with philosophy, then this is also this is only with one aspect of philosophy, not everything in philosophy. There is language, logic, fault, etc., etc. This is means limited, but yes, if we come upon the being who has created all this, then this is infinite in every case. That's all.
About one point about art. So this is the last point. Maybe we should wrap after this. So yeah, art being religious, and one I would even say being anti-religious. Sartre and Camus.
Yes,
Then,
yes, and
but
also the
all of these
conception of
stalled.
huh,
Yeah, all of this stalled.
see, see.
After maybe even in Indian, if you see the Bollywood movies, that Om Puri, that these guys, Smita Patel,
Nasiruddin Shah.
after 1980s it stopped. India was a Soviet colony after the Bangladesh war. Okay, so that 10-15 years Kremlin se chalta tha Sansad Bhavan. But still, even after that, after 80s, 84, 85, it stopped. Bollywood lost all its charm, and we got the obscenities for 2010. But that movies that they had, these Bengalis, I forget their name, Pasu Chatterjee and
Satyajit Ray.
Satyajit Ray, the movies that they made, they inspired that guy Nolan and Scorsese, जो आजकल सब बन रहे हैं. And they've ruined Batman, they've ruined Spider-Man. कुछ भी अच्छा नहीं लगता अब. But these guys inspired those people, dude. So that it was a very socialist bent का था, very anti-traditional, very women empowerment पे बहुत उनका जोर रहता था. So you see women leaving their husbands, women having multiple affairs. That is salacious, licentious, but still it was there. It's an art form. You have to see for what it is. But it stopped because religion comes with tradition and very, that lifestyle. And when everything goes, then nothing is special. So you lose the charm.
Yes.
So,
and in this
Himanshu,
case
anything
also, just one point.
Yeah, sure.
Because there was question of imitation, that we cannot imitate ancients. Yes, we cannot imitate ancient, but in that case also we are situating and packing all the ancients, whatever happened before us, in a set forms, and then we are seeing them as ancients. But if we, for example, if we go in the Vedic tradition, then there is a proper shift of Samhitas to Upanishads. This is revolutionary. In my mind, this is a very big revolution, because they are coming from Swarga to Apavarga. This is revolutionary, and this idea, and in case of the development of every religion, there are such movements, there are such thinkers, there are such people who come up with many different notions, and they make up things, they create things, and that is the idea. If we are here, means we ought to create anything, I think. And when we talk of religion or as a human dimension, I was saying, in every case we have a background and we are producing something that is defining us. Or maybe we may try to identify with that product of us, and that is the case with, I think, everything in case of literary works and art and many arts, philosophy also.
Anyone else would like to say something before? Actually, as I said earlier, I am visiting my extended family in some remote part of Uttar Pradesh. The marriage ceremony is about to begin in a while, so I purposefully kept myself away so that I don't end up lecturing on someone on the demerits of getting married. So, but I understand that now I really have to go, or else I'd be discarded as a member of the family. So before I begin losing respect, so I'll be very apologetic for drawing a curtain on this discussion, and I really hope that you all liked it. It was the first one that we had, and hopefully, inshallah, we'll have lot many lined up. And please come up with your ideas, with your topics, and be very free in choosing what you want to discuss, because we obviously don't want to make it very systematically boring. As I said in the beginning, we want to have something which is very conducive to a discussion, not very as conducive to a debate as much to a discussion, because we don't want to prove someone wrong here. There's never going to be a question of wrong and right. We're simply going to talk, and that is, which in my opinion, talking is in the sense of philosophy. So very thankful to everyone for joining us today. Very thankful that you all came with such an interest and surprised me. I'll not lie, I'll not be hesitant, and I'll not keep it to myself that I am very surprised that I was joined by such a good crowd. And Mutasim, Kalpana, Ayush, Ani, Himanshu, Tanu, I'm a little disappointed, we'll have to talk. And Meman sir, yeah, thank you so much for joining you from History Honors, and I hope that you'll be joining us again and again. And there were more people. Tushar is here, but he has chosen to be a silent spectator. That's his freedom. I'll give him that. And Vishal Bodha. Okay. Okay, I understand the reason why. That's all right. That's all right, Tushar. That's all right. No, no complaints. No complaints. Vishal Bodha, thank you for being a listener, a patient listener, and Vedant Yadav for joining and leaving intermittently as you pleased. Thank you. That's all for today, I guess. है ना? एक photo. If Himanshu would like to take a photograph of Tanu, if you could just turn on the camera once again, Mimansa, you too, because by now we have developed a rapport that we can show each other our faces. So let's take a picture, Tanu, and yeah, Mimansa.
I'll take the Tanu is away.
Tanu has just went once
if
again.
we can,
Okay.
no, there are some problems. If we can on the cameras, some of you. Just for a minute. Otherwise, I have taken pictures. Okay, let's do this.
Acha.
I did this
Okay.
whenever I got opportunities. So
Tushar has
just-
turned on
just
his camera as well.
two
Hi,
more-
Tushar. I'll take a quick
I can't
screenshot of it. Okay, so yeah.
yes, keep it. There are few announcements for future discussions. As you know, we have 2 pages. One is Let's Talk Tattva, and just to familiarize you, this is a
Indian
platform
philosophy.
where we will be. Yes.
Yeah, we also have Indian
Yes,
philosophy
Anil?
memes, huh? Instagram page.
Yes, this is by a research scholar from Punjab University. He is a research scholar in Advaita Vedanta and Vaisheshika. He's a wonderful person. We had a discussion with him, previous discussion. We had a first discussion of Let's Talk Tattva with him. So his name is Satyan Sharma. The thing I want to tell you is that we will have we are going to have a discussion on I would say it a professional discussion or a discussion by scholars, because there will be people who are who have researched in their fields and who have experience in their fields. So next discussion will be on rationality in Indian philosophy, and I have some reservation for Indian philosophy. I want to tell you about that, and I want to say that. So this discussion will be totally opposite to whatever you have known about Indian philosophy, in the sense, or from if you have read C.D. Sharma, Radha Krishnan, Datta Chatterjee, anything. This will be a deconstructing discussion for you if you are interested, and this will be by our professor from IIT Bombay. He is and the slight bent will be with the Sanskrit Buddhism, the after Nagarjuna or Nagarjuna Buddhism. So it will be about the other perspective of Indian philosophy, which has been kept what should I say, veiled from us, because there were some reasons, etc., etc. You all know if you are studying Indian philosophy. So this will be, and please share it wherever you can. And in future we will have professional discussions discussions by scholars on Let's Talk Tattva, and here we will be discussing these things, and we will also be discussing there will be post discussion sessions on what the scholars have said, if we want to do it. If we can discuss it on the groups, etc., or just that. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, guys. So I'll just quickly end the meeting. Okay, bye bye. Have a good night.
Bye.